And I'm queuing. Hey, Nerdhead! Wait! Zyphon! Do you want to come play? Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello. How are things for you?
Alright.
Nice.
You know, I had a dream about picking up a saxophone and, like, walking around and somehow being, like, singly minded, able to play it instead of having struggled with so many other instruments that I've always tried or something like that. I don't even know why I had this dream. It was the weirdest thing.
So what was you were doing again? Sorry, my language processing skipped that bit.
Just walking around playing a saxophone in my dream and like hitting notes and feeling the notes come together. I don't know if that makes sense, but
That's
like,
pretty cool, man. Nice.
And I'm not very musically minded. Like I'm an illustration artist and you know, graphic designer and stuff like that. So music to me has always been like this foreign thing. I've got a guitar here, but I can maybe play like 3 licks on it.
Yeah. Did you learn musical instruments as a kid or something, or?
No, not at all.
Okay. Maybe it's your creative mind expressing itself in various ways, you know. And I like it. I like the theme of the dream too. It's like you can do anything. You can go ahead and pick up an instrument and learn it if you really wanted to.
Which is weird for me because, like, why a saxophone? Right?
Yeah.
I've never had a connection to a saxophone.
Right.
Guitar, yes. Drums, yes. Nothing else really. Maybe a piano, but not even.
Right. Have you listened to a lot of music throughout your life?
Oh yeah, I'm a audiophile.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, I think if you have an appreciation for music, you can certainly live that feeling of playing music freely, like the true, like amazing musicians do. Like they just do their thing, and they're like, oh wow, you know, you sit back and you listen to it as a third person. You go, what the fuck? And then that connection for you of exploring that is great. I love it. I love it a lot.
Okay. Got your friend code here and adding that in right now.
Awesome. I'm bopping to drum and bass.
It says player does not exist. Do I need to put your name in with that?
I don't know. Try
I feel like we already had you on friends list there.
That is weird. Hold up. Let me have a look. Maybe. Are you offline?
I'm not offline, no.
And you got the same name on Steam?
I have. Yeah, it's just Zyphon.
Weird. Where the heck are you then? Hey, look. I'm gonna try and add you.
I see Umiboshi.
Yeah, he's a fake. Don't worry about him. Zyphon? Any numbers or anything in there, or is it just
Zyphon.
Letters? Okay.
You should see our Nerd Herd gas mask logo.
Oh wait, I can send a quick invite apparently, but hey, let's try it. Wow, fuck. Why did I do that? I'm bad at tech. This is why I stopped doing IT work, people. Nerdhead Lycon, gas mask, sick. Yep, one friend in common, let's go. Bam. Hey Steam, integrate with Discord so that we can just add each other. Like, surely you can. I mean, they integrate with everything else, so...
Why would they do something that makes sense? Alright, I got you. I added it.
Yeah. Alright. Let's see if you come up. It's probably going to take forever. Oh my gosh. That's okay. We could talk forever too. Man, dreams have been really interesting to me as of late because they've kind of changed themes as I've changed myself throughout time, you know. And it's an interesting kind of reflection. I suppose it's an effect of what I'm looking for in life becomes the things I seek in dreams, or that come to me in dreams. Um, and oh man, just the conception of lucid dreaming as well. Like I would love to be able to do that and explore my subconscious to a deeper level.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Oh man, yeah. Because I have a sneaking suspicion my subconscious is way more powerful. Given that, like, you might know this as a creative, you feel like you have all these ideas and you're kind of struggling with your prefrontal cortex to go, fuck, how do I get that out? And then you have to be smarter and smarter and smarter to do it. And you find yourself kind of on this a never-ending thing of like, oh, my brain is being creative and throwing shit at me. I need to do this and this and this and this and this, and you're never-ending and being creative, which isn't in itself is great, but you can burn out really easy as a creative, especially as a conscientious creative. Like if you work hard, you know, maybe in game. Let's try that. Hey, I see you now. Yes, let's go. 10 minutes till Stream Raiders, peeps. Get over there if you want to be in there to win there. We got the Peanut Mobile from Xgen.
So it's intriguing because you mentioned like dreaming and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't typically dream a lot, mainly because of my insomnia. And I've mentioned this a few times, but I don't know if you've been there when I've talked about it. I sleep maybe about 2 to 4 hours in a given 48-hour period.
Right. Quick question: competitive or casual?
Yeah. Oh, I don't care.
Easy. Let's do it.
But like.
Yeah, right. 2 hours. Wow.
I have come to figure out that I think because I had such ridiculous nightmares when I was like 15, that it was my brain's way of saying, you know what, this is how we're going to get rid of these things. We're just not going to let you sleep. Or if we do, it's going to be the absolute minimum you need to exist without actually letting your brain participate in dreams. Because anytime I have a dream, it ends up being like the most horrific thing. Like it'll start really nice, you know what I mean? Like, and then just all of a sudden it turns ghastly, like really quick.
Right.
And because of that, like I can watch any scary movie out there and it pales in comparison to the crap my brain comes up with.
I think
so. I just sit there and laugh at horror movies.
Yeah, and that makes sense as to why you're a writer, because you need to put that somewhere. And it's not, unless you get into the upper echelons of jazz and free jazz and all that, it's not generally a thing in music. So writing is a very good avenue for you to go, okay, well, I've got all these ideas, let's get them out and put them out there.
I turn them into illustrations.
Sorry, yeah.
More so than writing. No, you're alright.
Yeah, my brain connected in the wrong spot. Yeah, right, illustrations. Yeah, dude, it's a great way to go. And often that is the thing with creatives. They're tormented by not being able to express themselves on a level that's applicable. Oh, that's a big thought. Hold on. They're not able to express themselves on the levels that are applicable on which they are. So they work to be in a place where they can express themselves. If I can, I'm trying to make that really general for like all artists or creatives. And this is also creatives in the business sense, in terms of like, if you're an architect, you might also be keen to, I don't know, you might have OCD or some shit, and you're like doing clean lines and such, and having things in order, and that's your passion. And this is kind of the thing as well. Creativity expresses itself on many more dimensions than we really typically think about. Like there are a lot of people that are, like, I had someone taking me through a business course, and she said to me, I'm a box ticker, I'm not really a creative person, I don't get you guys. But she came up with so many damn good ideas that I'm like, how do you not see that in a business sense you are creative? In an artistic sense, I'm creative, but I suck at the business shit. Like, you know, and I've addressed that weakness and got, okay, who do I listen to? Who do I go to for support and learning? How do I think about this I'm trying to rationalize the whole business thing in an artistic way, because that's where it came from, music.
And you know what's interesting about that is there's this vast discrepancy in education in general for creatives to learn how to apply it into a business sense.
Mm.
And a lot of that comes from the industrial arena because they learned that if they empower artists and creatives to take their uh, destiny, if you will, into their own hands, that they would lose the ability to get creative services for less than what they're actually valued at.
Mm. Mm.
And so they created a purposeful devaluation throughout history. You can
Yep.
you
Yep.
can see it. Um, we went from the age of artists being something that was a noble profession where you had a patron and you had, you were put up in fine housing establishment, given nice clothing, all this other
Mm.
stuff, and then you would create solely for your patron.
Mm.
Well, when the Industrial Revolution came around and all these companies were like, well, I need artwork to sell this corporate product, but I don't want to pay, this is something I can cut costs for. Well, artists are a dime a dozen.
Mm.
Literally, you can throw a dart and hit an artist somewhere.
Mm.
And so they came up with the idea of demoralizing the artist and saying, well, you know what? Yeah, I could pay you 500 or 700, whatever, shillings, dollars, you name it. But so and so over here does it just because they like it. Don't you like art? If you like art, you would do this just because you like it. Like, you don't really have to make money at it, do you?
Yeah.
And so this became a standard phraseology that was heard throughout history,
Yeah.
to the point where, parents and other people were like, hey, being an artist isn't really that lucrative a career. And so parents started discouraging their kids from doing it
Yeah.
because they realized that it was going to be such a hard road.
Yeah. Now, I just want to check one thing. You point out that it sounds like you see the people, some kind of power elite or something, acting upon that industry and changing that. I have a different thought, because I was thinking back to the printing press with the Gutenberg and the Bible, and and the power of that wasn't so much monetary. That monetary power was a thing back then, but they're obviously searching for more ways to govern, control, to not have so much stress on the state to individually teach people, but have structures that teach them a way of living that functions in the time. That's kind of the way I rationalize religion and all that. And I'm not going to get into the whole like religion exists or is real or true or whatever, because there's a lot there that whatever, it doesn't matter to this. The point is that religion kind of came about and proliferated via word of mouth at first, and it was tied to geography based on how far people could move and walk and be connected and all these other factors. That got drastically changed by the printing press, and the printing press was able to go, okay, let's make massive stacks of books that we can send off with preachers, and they can hand these out and preach and do their thing and teach people to read. Also, that was a major factor as well. It was mainly about getting the power elite to be religious as well, so that their people would be religious, because that's the power structure back then. Then we go further, and I wonder if it's just a matter of the industry changing because of the technology, and the devaluing is not so much a conscious action, but more of a reaction to the fact that, we can, as you said, we can pick out any artist, we can run 100 through the mill and pick the best one and fuck off the rest. Also out of the fact that we have more people in the world and we're more and more connected, right? So the queues on Rocket League, my gosh, but and that's kind of what I'm thinking about, is like, I wonder if it's less about a purposeful devaluing, but just a reactive devaluing because of the way the market is acting and because of the technology is working with the market.
I think that's a really valid point, and I would concede that there is absolutely something to that. I think it's probably one of those things where it's like a combination, right? Like there were some people that were doing purposeful devaluation; they were doing it for shady reasons, and then others was just simply a reactive. Okay, the technology changed, so people were trying to grow with the technology, and they realized, oh, well, I can do this faster. That means my rate can go down. Some such things like that, because that brings up a good point. Perception is reality, right? In the commercial world, if I present an art print, one of my pieces, for sale, and I'm at a convention or something like that, or let's say it's a poster, like an 11 by 14 poster, like you might find kind of in Walmart or anything like that. People are sitting there comparing in their head. They're like, well, at Walmart, this wall print is only between $5 to $8. Why is it all of a sudden $45 here? And the purpose for that is that I don't have means of mass production on the scale that Walmart has. Walmart buys those things at 10 to 15 cents a pop.
Yep. And because I can mass print it, it's replicatable and spreadable. And
right,
it's seen,
exactly.
That's the other thing about those art things in those stores, is they'll buy thousands of the same print and send like maybe 2 off to each store to sell independently, because it looks like they have a range, and they like, it sits there forever. They don't really care if they sell it or not. But if someone comes along and thinks that's good art, puts it up in their house, like I've seen my mum do it, I've seen my sister do it all the time. I'm like, okay, all right. Like the answer to that is to go to an artist directly and pay
what they're worth.
Pay what they're worth. Yeah, I was about to say a large amount, but I wanted to stop myself. And you're right on that point. Like, pay them what they're worth.
The other situation of that, and this is actually, I am funny that you mentioned authorship. I am writing a book called Entrepreneurship for Artists.
Beautiful.
And
I would love to read that, please. Yes.
Teaches both the business aspect as well as the ability to visualize oneself as a successful artist, because a lot of times, like I said, we're taught all of these negative things. I know because I went through it up to even a few years ago.
Yeah.
My mother would call me and say, hey, when are you going to get a real job?
Yeah.
And I was like, how did that work out for you? You've worked yourself to the bone, for promises of pension at 2 different companies. Each company has forced you into early retirement to the point to where you're driving into work stressed out, smoking and drinking coffee just to stay, at a level kind of nerve field. You have all these vices and crutches that help you maintain sanity. I'm like, how has that really worked out for you? I'd rather be poor and lying, like sleeping in a ditch but still maintain happiness than to be beholden to somebody else's ideal of what I'm supposed to be. And for about 5 years, I actually lived off of ramen while I was getting my art business going.
Yep.
And now I've worked with some major publishers and stuff like that. But, people don't have these conversations.
Oh.
And when they do, they shy away from the hard points of it, because
I made you party leader. Give it a shot queuing. It might work better.
I'm in A East, so if I was...
Can you do US West if you choose the region? Actually, hold up. Maybe that's why I wasn't queuing very well, because I was doing OCE. I didn't think about that.
OCE is probably like non-existent.
Yeah, non-existent for you. Chuck me back party leader. I'll do US West. I can choose the region for us.
But yeah, I love these types of conversations, and I get very passionate about them.
Beautiful, dude, because I do too. And I think this is the thing, is like I struggled for a long time to put my uber creative thoughts into words, and it's taken me this long to even get close to it. And it being like the efficient way of me working. and I'm striving to find new mechanisms or ways of being or ways of thinking that are going to allow my craziness to operate in this crazy world as well. Because it's not just me. It's like there are thousands of people out there that are acting under these pressures and they have variables to the infinite variability that I can't predict. So the best thing I could do for the people around me is to be a good person myself, and to be a good person myself, there's like many layers of that, but to be conscious and mindful of what I'm doing, trying to go, okay, well, if I want to help other people deal with their craziness, I need to deal with my craziness. And I love the fact that you have gone through the process of doing it on an individual level, coming from the creative field, moving into this streaming business arena. And and I think that's why I like you guys so much. Do you want to give me party leader again? I'll try queuing.
Oh, do I have it? I'm sorry. I thought.
Yeah, I
you gave
dropped it
to
on
the
you.
other gentleman there.
That's okay. We've been talking about a lot of stuff.
So sorry. I've just
Ah.
been in training mode, like making sure I don't look like an idiot when we're sitting here playing.
Hey man, that's my job. Yeah, good. Don't be an idiot. That's my job. My job to be a fool.
Oh no, I'll still look like an idiot. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I love the fact that you're a creative and you've made creative products and have done this thing that I see a lot of not so creative, but very conscientious and business-minded people / lucky people that have been born into wealth and done well because they had wealth, or people that have worked really hard and been adaptive being a part of creativity as well, to change themselves to work with the variables that they have in the variable nature of the world that it is now. And I say that I add that last part on because dang, I was close. I was mentioning the variables that people are on, and you're absolutely right to point out the socialization of the social aspects of the devaluation of music and art and the art worker in the workplace, in the industries, essentially in the art industries. They are copied, they're reprinted, they're put everywhere, and on that landscape there's a vastly different set of circumstances. One, there are a lot more people listening to a lot less artists, or or access to a lot less artists. The artist field is now, by that virtue, way more competitive, super competitive. That means that only the top 1%, maybe all the 0.05%, the larger your workforce become, or the industry, the artists become. Sorry, the larger the artists become, the more that you're going to get the cream of the crop out of the top, and that's why we see uber rich artists on one level, and a massive amount, and they're very, very small, given the entire population of people that engage in the industry or are artists themselves. And as that landscape grows, the size of the dispossessed group grows radically more, to almost a power, instead of, it's not a ratio that goes up, it's the more, sorry, I'll try to explain that. The bigger the population, the smaller the group needs to be to get an even better person. You can be more selective the more people you have. So imagine being on that playing field and then doing it generationally, to go back onto the social level, resolution wise, as you were speaking before, throughout history, right? With the fact that it is throughout history been done means that people have gone into the workforce, they've seen their bosses acting a certain way to a certain workforce, they have then gotten into managerial positions, they have then acted the same way to people below them, they have then gotten up and higher, maybe because it was efficient or productive or effective in the role that they were in. May not be effective overall, it may not be effective on all levels of human life, like happiness for one, or contentment or whatever, but it's definitely along the lines of success and money. So when that effect happens generationally, it's like a step away from valuing artists, like back in the days of the artists that would paint stuff for lords and ladies and kings and such, just by virtue of being nearby, being able to show their work to those people and having been renowned. And also the idea of national pride being tied to the artistic content that the nation makes. what the heck? Why are we not proud of the local artists of each nation? Why are we not, like, there are so many artists that I see as a musician, and I get this only, I get, you might get it as well, being an audiophile. Sorry to keep going on for a while here too.
No, you're all right. I'm listening. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. After all, it's your stream.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
More than anybody else.
Yeah. I'm just too nice. All right. So, the when you listen to more and more music, you see what is easy and what is hard, because what is hard is more rare, and you look for what is rare, being a human, right? Like you don't want to value something that is so common because it's not valuable by virtue of it being common. So when you find something rare, you focus on it. You go, oh, that's different, that's new, that's interesting, okay. And that new thing is the fact that we have so much access to information then affects how many new things we see. And that kind of explains to me, for me anyway, why I get so fucking bored, and why kids these days are always so freaking bored, or needing to be on a screen, or needing to be engaged on a short-term scale, instead of the long-term, like, hey, let's sit down for a 30-minute lesson and engage with music. You're going to practice for a week and learn this skill you may not even be able to make money out of, but if you work really hard, you'll probably get to some level where you can, like, at least in teaching it, right?
Sure.
Because you can do it, but you might not. And to me, talent is not a thing as well. It's all skill.
Yes, it is a learned. So that's one of the very first things I always tell people, especially in the business of things, is, look at the average skilled tradesman. The average skilled tradesman, a plumber, an electrician, a construction worker, and somebody that has a physical labor, right? They have courses that they have to go through. They have all these things that they have to go through to prove that they are viable in that skill. Now, some would say that when you get high enough in that thing, it could almost be an art form because of the problem solving that pops up, right?
Yep.
So at that point, I contend, and this is what really started changing my ability to be able to charge what I'm worth as an artist and creative, is by putting the mindset together that says I'm at least as skilled as the average skilled tradesman. And within my field, I'm better than the average creative at what I do, simply because I have over 20,000 hours worth of seat time in my illustration work and stuff like that. And I study non-stop. I spend about 10 to 12 hours a day in my chosen craft. So when you put that together, then you can start changing the mental picture that you've written for yourself. And if you can do that, then you can start seeing real value in what it is you have. And so when you ask for whatever your desired rate is for that service, you can feel better justified in being able to explain it to your potential client base. That is something that a lot of people have trouble doing. Now, the reason that I'm able to do that is because I started reading CEO level books when I was 15. I wanted to get an MBA. I wanted to have a business mindset, and then I learned how to do artwork from my brothers and sisters and stuff like that, and saw that they gave up on their dreams. They all wanted to be artists. They all walked away from it. And I was like, why did you do this? And they're like, well, because it's not viable. And so I basically set out to prove that, hey, it is viable, and not only is it viable, it's a better health decision for life. Because again, I'm happier. I may not have as much money as my brother, who has a Porsche and a house on the beach and all this other stuff. But I also have significantly less problems mentally and physically than he has.
It was so scary moving from being a teacher and having guaranteed work each week, a guaranteed pay packet, essentially, like, it's very vastly different. And not many people know this if they've gone just straight into office work, straight into scheduled work. They might know it if they had to find work during COVID. So I understand that. I'm not attacking those people. Excuse me. But the thing I notice is people don't have a good conception of what is it to operate in an industry, to be so skilled, but to still have to operate on a gig level, a contractor level, right? And it's the same thing as a tradesperson. I love that, and that connection you bring, because they are also contractors, but they have vastly more rights. They are well more set up, and their history of valuing those rights has been based on the productivity and the ability and livability for those workers, and the strenuous nature of those works. Usually, like, tradespeople are generally working with power tools. They're working at heights. They're working with heavy loads. They're working early in the morning. They're needing vast amounts of skills, like electricians, plumbers. They definitely have to have amazing skills. Welders are also up there. Professional drivers of trucks. It goes to many levels, but there's a disconnection for the artist, and it doesn't go to that level because it's just seen as, it's devalued to the level of, oh, it's a passion thing, it's a side project, it's a gig for you.
Right.
It's a hustle. It's not, because like yourself, I went away for 3 years, trained as a musician. Before that, I was working for practicing and playing music for 7 years. 6 years. I'll go fuck, I didn't go, my bad. And then after that, now, throughout my whole life, I've been practicing music constantly for now, what am I? 28? Started at age 11. 17 years. There you go. 17 years easily of experience that I have in the field. And some people would argue, yeah, but you were a kid when you did. I'm like, yeah, I started learning a thing while I was a kid. Do you see all the savants out there? They started, like, the best drivers in the world. They were starting driving when they were like 9 or 10 or whatever. They were go-karting or whatever. The same thing with the artists that you see popping up. They usually started early. Freaking goes to all levels. The pop artists that started, like Beyonce, was dancing and performing in a living room to her family and getting applauded for it by her family, loving the heck out of it at that level, which is an important note that I want to bring, is that these artists have been reinforced their whole life. Now, then you go into the industry where it's not reinforced at all. You go into education where it isn't reinforced, and then you have industry affecting your life choices and going, oh well, it as you said, for your brother and your brother and sister, was it, or two brothers?
Family in general. I've got 2 brothers and 4 sisters. Yeah,
they said it was an ineffective route to go down, and they chose something else, right? And then they were unhappy, and that's the worst. Are they both older than you?
The two that really kind of helped me, like, see that, like, they had given up. Yes. Well, actually 3 of them. They were older than me, and I looked up to them, and so because they were so creative, they were so driven by the joy of sitting around and just drawing and challenging each other to drawing contests. That was the effect they had on me. And it's kind of weird how that happens, right? Like, mentally, you look at the psychology behind it, and Umi mentioned, like, the risk of injury and death. I would contend that the risk of injury to my wrists and or my brain is still up there. And artists artists and creatives have a much more likelihood for depression and suicide than almost any other job or career path.
One of the things I say to creatives around me, having gone through, like, designing a business plan, is you can absolutely justify going to a psychologist and claiming that on tax. Like, you can absolutely justify that because it comes under professional development or personal development and stability of your workforce. Of course I'll pay for that. Industries just don't do that because it doesn't pay off as well as giving them time off or giving them, you know, paid fucking parental leave and all that other shit. They don't want to do that for their workforce during work hours because it's ineffective to them. They would rather have a counselor that, like, at a minimal level that they can go and talk to if they need to. No, they're not going to do preventative shit. So do preventative shit. You can go to get massage if you have muscle strain from playing a musical instrument too long. Heck, if you're a freaking streamer and you're holding a controller all the time, make it a part of your business. If you're a 3D printer guy, make it a part of your business plan to design controller grips that work for you, that might work for other streamers and other gamers or even esports level shit, so that they can hold the controller for longer. Or even do it on the individual level. Like, you can see how once you see the path of justification, that the creative mind just goes fucking nuts. It's like, oh my god, I could do this, I could do that, oh yeah, okay, all right. I think the advantage that non-creative people have is they stick to a path. Creative people can't really do that very well. Like, they find flaws in the path they're on, and then they change it out. A lot of times,
they're the ones who... I have to be careful not to gross misgeneralize. But I have had a significant portion of people who come to me to draw them a character for their D&D campaign, or to make a character that's representative of them in the game that they play. And they come to me and they say, oh, I couldn't draw my way out of a paper bag. And I'm like, yeah, you could. Yeah. You just don't know how to start it. And they're like, oh, well, I can only draw a stick figure at best. And I'm like, great, well, then you have the first part. You literally, that's how every cartoon starts, is as a stick figure. Yeah. It's called gesture drawing. And just because you don't have the language for it or the understanding for it doesn't mean you don't have the aptitude for it. It means that you're afraid to try because you don't know where to start. But don't, like... I tear people up, especially when they say what I have as talent, because I'm like, no, I had to fight for this skill.
Absolutely.
I had to fight. Like, don't you dare diminish the thousands of hours of trial and error that I sat here drawing the human figure in so many bad proportions. Don't you dare diminish that by saying, oh, well, it's talent and I don't have it.
Because it is so painful and so little people are happy to go through that.
Work for it. There is a big difference.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, man. That idea of talented, it's been, unfortunately, kind of changed over time. Like, people see it as a compliment, but it's not really a compliment. It makes sense on the educational scale. Like, if you see a kid that's 3 years old and you tell them a thing about music and then they suddenly know the notes, it's like, okay, they have perfect pitch. That's a massive talent. Now, the skill that comes in and the fact that they then become a musician or they start doing writing or whatever in the music field because they have perfect pitch. That's just one example, by the way.
They still have to learn how to apply it.
Exactly. You know, you could have photographic memory, but you go down the line of, like, all the conspiracies ever and you go nuts, right? There's a few names that pop up there for me in terms of those types of people. And they often seem justified because they have all those connections, but they often also seem crazy to the normals, right? The people that just operate in normal society and aren't driven on that level, like even close to it.
Right.
Or at least not directed at that. It's like the further you go specialized, the more crazy you seem. I've seen it with musicians. They get in, like, I've seen it with myself, getting into single tone drones and like, oh, I can just play one note and explore the whole thing. That shit was amazing to me and maybe like 3 other people in the world, but and it might be amazing to other people on different levels. But as I was making, I was fighting this thought of, like, this is just so basic and, like, easy, but I was applying a higher lens because I had that criticism of myself, and that criticism drives creative decisions. It gets you to move, like, because it's discontent. It's like, I'm not content with this, I need to do work to make it better. If you're just content with it, or you're content with not even playing the game, which is another thing I see in Rocket League. If we're to to expand this to game playing and the levels that I like to talk about in my stream of, if you're leaving a game early and you're forfeiting and surrendering because there's one goal in, like let's take this scenario right here. We have 2 minutes 50 left, and X-Tune's a frickin' rager, right? I'm not saying X-Tune is, but he gets super salty. I've been talking all the time. I'm constantly creating on stream and talking about an interesting topic. He's like, oh, forfeit. Yeah, there it is. There's the forfeit. Great, nice. He's like, oh, I'm a forfeit. Fuck this. These guys are a waste of my time. I don't even want to play with them, blah, 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 blah. You miss out. Ooh. You miss out on seeing that shit, right? Like, if we forfeited before, that could have happened.
Banger. Holy crap.
Man, I want to see you shoot one of them before the end of the game. Fuck yeah. They forfeit the idea of even succeeding under that pressure, taking that burden and doing something about it, right? And that's where I see a lot of faults in people, is like they have focuses on things that they can't even control, and they've foregone controlling things in their life and been depressed about it, or they've gone to the nth degree of conspiracy theories, or knowing everything about politics, or everything about the media, or everything about coronavirus, or everything about the hate in the left and right, or everything about everything.
Nobody knows everything about everything.
Exactly.
That's the worst part.
Right? And
that's the worst logical fallacy, is everybody says, oh, well, I've looked this up, and so I understand it better than you. And it's like, bitch, unless you're a scientist and you're the one conducting the experiments, then all you have is a secondhand knowledge. And even the scientists do sit there and fight about things. Like, this is nothing new under the sun.
Yeah. and that's an amazing thing, is like, people are so adamant about their position that they are like almost tied to it individually, and they feel attacked when their ideas
when
are
somebody
attacked.
chooses something different. Listen, I respect a person's right to choose damn near anything for their life.
Yeah.
But when it affects me, then you have to respect my position on it. That's the way I feel, and I'll respect your position on it.
Yeah.
Like, it's that simple. And if that respect comes down to agreeing not to be in each other's presence because those ideals don't meet, then so be it. I'll still love a person for being exactly who they are, but I won't put myself physically in their presence to put myself at risk. That's all.
There's a sense of a theme I've been talking about there of conscious ignorance. If you're getting anxious about the news, or you're worried about the neighborhood you're in, or whatever, like, for whatever reason, it might be because you have racist tendencies and you're scared of black people, right? Move the fuck away from them. Don't live near them. Find or figure out a way to live with them. Like, whatever, like. And it goes also to the level, like, I don't want to focus on that because that's a really deep topic. But like, people that are stuck in their ways. Let's talk about that. People who are old, right? They have been living most of their life along that line, and in a society where that line has been effective, that gameplay has been effective enough for them to have survived and not been lynched and beaten to death, for instance, for wrong think. Like, there were people that were no, let's not go on that level. There are people that have operated in society at the resolution that they needed to be functional, right? Those people have been functional, and those functional narratives have been purported throughout our society to be the way to live, the way to survive, the way to be successful, and that influences things like art and industry and all of this, to such a degree that like, it's ineffective to worry about any levels that you aren't in control of. Like me. Okay, let's take me as an example. I've decided to stop watching the news. Now, some people might gall at that and go, but what if you don't know what's going on? What if you're gonna you don't know what the government's doing, etc., etc.? It's like, yeah, but what am I gonna do about what the government's doing? With that knowledge, what can I do? Anything other than vote?
Right.
Nothing. Okay, so that's the decision. Is okay. I'm gonna remain as conscious as I need to be to vote, and I've made my own decisions about how I do that. But also, there's all these other elements of, like, there's people playing that game of, like, oh, you need to stay connected. It's like, no. I could be consciously ignorant of that shit that makes me angry and nervous and anxious each day. Why not? Why the fuck not? And
Yeah.
I've become a
So
massively more positive
you
person.
bring up a really good point because I talked about mentality and changing one's mentality earlier. At the age of 16, I walked into my house after coming back from the pool, and my mom was looking at me, and she had been watching the news, and she's like, "The world's coming to an end." And I'm like, "Okay, that's a bit bleak. Like, what are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, this was during the height of the war in Afghanistan for the U.S. and we're sending troops over there, and prepping for Operation Desert Storm and all these things." And I I looked at her and I was like, "Mom, this is absurd." I'm like, "You're hinging on all of this fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's being fed to you through this box, and you're failing to see that literally just before I walked in this door, I saw people of 4 different races sitting here coexisting together and helping one another. This lady had had a heat stroke at the pool that I was at, and the entire community came together to help her get through it." And I'm like, where's the news for that? Where's the news for this joyous moment of the expression of human care for one another?
Yep.
There isn't, because it doesn't fucking sell. And so at the age of 16, I stopped watching the news, and it's gotten me in trouble with people sometimes, but by the same token, I'm like, you know what? I'd rather live through my community and the people around me and know that I'm affecting positive change locally, which can have a butterfly effect kind of thing going globally, than to sit there and live in fear of the unknown. And
even internally,
to let that affect my decision about like walking outside of my house or meeting somebody of a different religion or race or whatever. Like, I don't know. It just. But you bring up a good point. Your decision to stop watching the news, I commend that, because that can change a lot emotionally for you.
Especially in the age of the internet, there is no reason for you to watch the news anymore. Like there is no reason for me to watch the news anymore. If I want to know about coronavirus, I go to Google, type in coronavirus and my state and the place I'm in, and I see all these news articles. I don't need a medium to direct the information that I'm getting. I also don't need them to sell their shit to me. No thanks. Yeah. And if you're keeping me around on the basis of this some like hindbrain reaction that I can't really control, because like it happens with games too. Like there will be games that are super catchy and entertaining, but they use the same things as freaking poker machines we call them in Australia, where you're just pressing a button, you're seeing flashing shit, and it's catching you, and you think you're winning because it's using that psychological element of betting with money that is also tied to your hindbrain, and chance, which is like if you're activating your hindbrain, you're not thinking with your prefrontal cortex, and if you're not thinking with your prefrontal cortex, you cannot gamble. You cannot.
Yeah, and
you are terrible at it.
You're letting everybody else deal your life for you.
Yeah.
You're letting all the news and your whatever your media is make your decisions for you. Now, and here's the danger. Because like you mentioned, with the advent of the internet and everything like that, people are getting their news and information from the internet. Well, all that's happening is all of those same news media outlets are learning how to adapt their same strategy to continue the behavior into like Facebook and stuff like that.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm glad you saw that.
Man, I didn't think you were passing to me, and then you did. I was like, oh, fuck, that's a dime.
Well, yeah, because the dude had it blocked if I was going to shoot it at him. So.
Right, I love it.
But,
even deeper to this.
I've canceled my Facebook for the same reason.
Yeah.
Because Facebook used to be a place where you could share ideas and talk to people from all kinds of different nations and cultures and backgrounds and different ideologies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now it's become a place of, at least for what mine became, and I don't know why it became that way, and maybe it's because of living in America and having mostly American friends and stuff like that. But it became, how can we cancel each other? How can we take one thing about this person and make it the reason that we hate them?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, okay, well, you have your flaws, I have mine. You know, I'm going to attempt to help you see things my way, but it never it stopped being civil. And when it stopped being civil was when I started having a distaste for it, and it made me feel that same way that I felt when I was 16 and stopped watching the news. I was like, you know, all it is now is negativity and people screaming at each other instead of having actual positive, you know, discourse and reinforcement for humans and stuff like that. I think one of the other things that really is fascinating to me is that people fail to remember that at our core, we're barbaric.
Yeah.
We are survivors. We are do whatever it takes, murder whomever we must in order to survive. At our fucking core, that's how the humans made it through the caveman ages and stuff like that. And that is ingrained in each and every one of our DNAs. It's something that we cannot deny. And the further we deny that, and more that we try and push it down and stuff like that, the more you see these heinous crimes start coming up of people doing shit that just doesn't even make sense. You know, we have a case of a lady that got so mad about being asked to wear a mask in public that she went home and told her dad. And her dad came back and shot the freaking greeter in the face just because the greeter was doing their job.
Wow. Fuck. It seems to me like civility has been countered by justification on most levels and most sides, right? I try to nut out general statements of the patterns that people are doing, such that we can then raise the resolution and see how that's playing out in our lives if we can check that. I realize it's a very gross generalization, but it seems to me that, you know, when we have people on the left that seem to, and I don't want to really talk about the left versus right thing, because that's again playing the game of polarization and tribalization and tribalism. I don't want to other those groups because I'm in the center and I get what's happening. But in this extremes of these games that we're seeing playing out, these extreme people seem to have justification to do the acts that they do, either violence at rallies, or it's punch a Nazi, or it's what was the other one? It's being homophobic to people or misgendering people on purpose. You know, sorry, not misgendering. Yeah, that is right. Mispronouncing or whatever. I can understand where the outrage comes from, and I can also understand where the justification comes from, but that in itself is the problem. This idea of polarizing seems to be the right thing to do in the game is not the game, to me. It shouldn't be the focus for people. It should be that, as you mentioned, like the problems that we're having, we need to have games that address those problems. So you mentioned we don't have open discourse, and there's very much, like we talked about a little bit about tribal. No, we didn't. I mentioned tribalism just there, and that to me seems a big one as well. Because that's what we mentioned. Hindbrained activity, right? You know, this old data that is within genetic code. It's like, you know, protection for kids, with protection for women. It's that same thing, but it's been socialized on different levels to be ratified, and it also worked, so it stayed, right? And these old codes, like racism is one. You know, I think that's fed almost purely by this hindbrain reaction of disgust, which is born from the idea of tribalism. Like, the response is disgust because they're scared of people outside of their own realm, because back in the day when there were tribes distanced from each other and then you had crossover, you needed to know what your people looked like and what others looked like. And that was extremely useful in battle. That was extremely useful in keeping distance from pathogens, even before we had a realization of what pathogens were, what disease was and all that. And those people survived. I'm not saying it was right. I'm not saying it was correct
it
to
became
do.
instinct, and that instinct gets passed down generation to generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you have combination of evolution as well as manners are not the presence of good behavior. It's actually manners is the definition of the removal of bad behavior. And so a lot of people are not taught those manners, right? Because if you look at, again, the education system as it exists is generally taught to teach very broad things so that the average person can succeed in certain things.
Yeah. Yeah. And this ties into my thoughts about the education system as a whole. It was made in the Industrial Revolution, which is interesting because you brought that up earlier.
I have a really big problem with that.
Yeah, and
really
it was designed as such, right? Because you think about the people back then during the Industrial Revolution, the level they're coming from is they don't need to learn how to read and write. They don't need to do math, really, unless they're dealing with a lot of money.
Because they wanted to teach you well enough to get out and push buttons on an assembly line, but not enough to ask questions about how to own your own company.
Yeah, hence the design of schools
you take
being
the power away from the people with the power and the educated.
Hence the design of schools being kind of rote learning and groups of students working together with a teacher exemplifying order. It's the same structure as a manager and people working in an office. And it's funny how you see shadows of what happens in schools happen in workplaces too. The whole workplace drama thing. The whole, we got together and now we have relationship drama. Oh, now I can't be a part of this group. And the manager's up there like, these fucking idiots. Or they're a part of the game too and they don't even realize.
We start learning politics as early as our very first, formative years in elementary schools and stuff like that. And people aren't aware of it, or the ones who are tend to put their kids in different either privatized schools or they do the homeschooling stuff.
And then you start getting class divide there.
Yeah.
Along intellect.
And then you get classed as weird because you're not going the status quo. Or you have what kind of happened in my case, which was in 5th grade. They gave us an aptitude test to determine where we were educationally compared to everybody else. I was invited to skip 3 grades ahead because I aced the test.
Right.
And I looked around and I was like, well, my friends who had passed this test previously, that was my bad, I failed to kick off. My friends who had passed the test previously, who I got to see go upwards in grade, then became bullied by everybody because you're going from middle school to high school.
Yeah.
You're going from late elementary school to late middle school, 5th to 8th grade, and you end up getting bullied.
Yeah.
And sure, I mean, some of them made it out of there all right and were able to recover and stuff like that, but still some of them were really just angry individuals. They felt as soon as they got that new educational content and stuff like that they weren't able to keep up, and so they ended up having to go into remedial classes to catch up, but they weren't actually remedial classes. They were higher level. It was right for what they were, but they were made to feel like they weren't actually deserving of where they ended up. So that was one option. The other option was to sit there in the current grade and deal with what felt like remedial education and level of knowledge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that is actually what I chose. And instead of dealing with doing all of the homework and doing all that, I literally graduated with a 1.7 GPA. I was not supposed to graduate. But what I did was I just said, look, you know what? I'm going to play your game. I can see this for exactly what it is. And, I still have a college degree, mind you.
Yeah.
So I sat there and I was like, you know what? Instead of jumping ahead, I'll stay where I am. And then I ended up seeing the systematic
Did you?
deprogramming of my friends. Oh no, sorry. I had balled those too. I was trying to get that third one
Yeah.
messed up. I was dancing all around the freaking soccer ball.
Yep.
And so I saw some brilliant minds get turned to mush.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, man, this just sucks. And so now my fear, right? I have a child coming into the world now.
Oh, yes,
The conversation that RocketGirl and I are having on a regular basis is, what is the education we're going to give our child? And I'm sitting there like, I really don't want him to go through public schooling because it's designed to break you. It's designed to break your spirit. I literally was told for 18 years not to bother trying to succeed because I was going to be a farmer like my dad.
Right.
Not that my dad was a farmer, but that we grew up in a rural area.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that would carry over to now. I don't, but I do know that like teachers are having to sit there and pass kids who can't even spell their own name.
Yep. And
we have a friend who literally has told us she's had to pass somebody who can't even spell their own name.
And this
At
idea
that point,
of failure
what
is bad.
is the value of education in America then?
Yeah. Not very high, right? If you're a very smart kid and you're in that system, you played it, you've done it well, you've gotten through, and you see not very functioning kids get passing grades, you're like, well, okay, I'll go off to uni. And you spend a whole fuckload of money there. Same thing happens because the bar is set lower. But I'll go back to this idea that I just struck upon when you were talking, is that there is a lot of anger associated with failure. No.
Oh, yeah.
It should be a learning opportunity. It's like, okay, my kid failed. Now we know what to do next time. What can we do next time to fix that? And partly it is on the teacher to come up with strategies to help that kid do so. But it is not on the teacher to answer for the kid's bad grade. If the kid did bad in the test, then whatever. It's just a fact of life. And I should have closed my door because I've been speaking passionately with my poor housemate still asleep. Anyway, I think he got up to the toilet and he's been interested anyways. He can sleep through anything, by the way, so it's okay. And I kind of felt that too. Like, look, there are a lot of kids that also don't function in that system very well, and it's because it's a system. It needs to be monitored and adapted to the times, as well as the kids, and as well as the populace, as well as the demographic, which standardized testing doesn't do, standardized curriculum doesn't do, and testing repeatedly throughout the year it doesn't do either. Testing doesn't teach.
Especially if it's testing by rote. Yeah, we're taught to pass tests. We're not taught to critically think.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that they literally call one of the questions critical thinking.
Yep. And I mean,
it's like, well, I'm not critically thinking if you've already told me the answer and I learned what the answer was, and learned how to memorize the answer, or have learned how to fake a crib sheet, which. Think about it, right? Any job function that you have, regardless of the amount of training that you have beforehand, you still have to learn a certain amount of it on the job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally.
Because each company has their own way that they do things. Each company has, a different software that they use that you might not have been trained on. But at least because you've got the foundation for what, the basics are, they can teach you those things.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's really intriguing to look at those things, but a lot of, I feel, what is happening worldwide right now actually stems from what they've allowed to pass as an education system for as long as they have.
Yeah. And the idea of you go through the rat race idea from Alan Watts. He talks about this. He's like, You go into kindergarten, you have fun there, you learn how to socialize. Okay, great, that's awesome. You go off and maybe learn some letters and learn some maths. Then you go into higher education, say in primary school for Australia. What is it for you? Elementary school is the first one.
Yeah.
Elementary school, and you go off and you learn more about maths through the years. You learn more about English through the years. You learn a bit about science and all this other stuff. Then you start to specialize, and you have certain lines of education that you can go down based on the teachers that you have and the expertise that is available in your country or on your in your system, and people get formed so naturally through that the narratives then flow into a larger society where, you know, university students are deciding over doing a psychology degree or an engineering degree over music, which, yes, it is totally applicable and correct. Like, if you look at it logically, you're not going to make a lot of money there and you're more guaranteed money there. Of course, go and do that. But if you're truly driven by that, and this kind of thing of, like, I remember you saying the mentors that you had were older and they were able to inspire you, and then when you saw them, I think the advantage you had in that, if I'm to reappraise it, is that you were able to see them go through the process of trying the other thing and not succeeding anyway. So you're like, okay, well, that other game doesn't work for me anyway. Okay, I don't like it. Let's just do this because it's the best thing I can do now for me. And that seems like a really selfish choice in life, right? Like, I'm kind of keen for casual, by the way.
Selfish necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right, we're taught that being selfish is intrinsically bad.
You can be selfishly altruistic.
Right. You could make decisions that affect yourself, i.e. selfish, but that result in a greater life potential and happiness quotient.
Yep.
And I think if we measured things in those ways, you know, and rewrote the narrative, so to speak, that we would see a functional change in our growth as humans in general. Our technology should be much further along than it is, but because of human greed and overall displeasure with most people's lives and stuff like that, we're stagnated in a lot of ways. Now, you can look and say, okay, well, Tesla's doing all these, or not Tesla, Elon Musk, and, you know, his company Tesla and the SpaceX and all that stuff. He's doing all these interesting things, yes, but he's still only doing it for the benefit of a select few.
Yeah.
If we were, and I'm talking pseudo-utopian ideals, and I realize that. But, you know, this is stuff that Plato and Socrates and Aristotle were discussing in Grecian times. And it's not far from the desires of mankind in general that mankind has had since he was able to actually form words and thoughts and express desire. But these things are not taught, and when discovered, they are typically beaten out of a person. You know, like I was discovered to be an artist back in school. Yeah. And I was punished for expressing my creativity by getting failing grades on otherwise fantastic, you know, reports and essays. Yeah. But just because I didn't, you know, keep my paper clean, I was punished. And I was taught to distrust all of the people that were put in charge of me.
Yeah. And it takes you down the line of Marxism very easily because you're dispossessed. Like you're at the bottom of this system as an artist. I mean, not now. You know, the more you can, I think ethics is a big one for open people as well, because we've done a lot of thinking about shit and we care about that. The ethics kind of come into play when you're building a business, and I think if you build a business around you really, really mindfully and ethically, then you can change the way. Like, I love the fact that people want to support people on Twitch because they just like they think they have a good idea, or they have a good vibe, or their personalities is on point, or they do a good thing and they have a good skill and they're happy about it. And people support people because they like what they're doing, and that mere fact means that, you know, artists now have more power than ever But also, that's a bad thing. As I mentioned, the more power you have in an industry, the more likely there is to be greater dispossession between those who do successfully and those who don't, or as well, right? Like, it's not like you're successful versus unsuccessful, it's successful versus the more successful that get a bigger piece of the pie, and then because they're that successful and have a bigger piece of the pie in the next iteration, they will be even more successful. It happened with hate online. It happened, like, trolls and shit online got really popular and all that. I found that a big responder, and again, that's a hindbrain response. People like to poke and make people angry because
Well, and that's because they themselves are angry and
Yeah.
displeased with
yeah,
their
they want people to see the world
situations.
they do. Like, yeah, they want that, and I get it, because you kind of, if you're in that group and you're doing that to those people and you think you're doing the right thing, either the right thing also being not an ethical choice, but more of a, it works for me, it is functional. Yeah, look, if you're at the bottom of the pile in terms of, as we've outlined with artistry, then you're going to go, yeah, burn the system down. It's not working for me. Do it differently. And then there are also these artists that are like, there are a lot of people creatively working online that are working well and doing it. And I think YouTube and Twitch and these platforms that are like, yep, look, we have a terms of service. You're not allowed to have these things on there, but otherwise, whatever you do, you create whatever it is you want. If it succeeds, it succeeds, right? That factor, instead of it being based on, okay, we can advertise you, we can sell tickets to a venue and make sure that oh yeah, you tick these lines for these demographics. No. Like, I very much thought about the, like, if this stream takes off, like, whatever that conception is at the time that I'm having these thoughts, like, at one point it was 1,000 people following me and 50 people watching on average. That's insane to me right now. However, that is just as likely as fucking 10 million people and 1,000 people at the same time, because I've seen those numbers on Twitch, right? That's why that conception can be a thing. But I've also seen way more people streaming their heart out, doing their thing, and getting a mediocre amount. My decision has been, okay, prepare for the big amount, but be happy with the small one, because you may know more about this. Well, you will know more about this, but my conception is that artists now do not need to get as big a piece of a pie to succeed, in terms of, like, to live and to function and to make more and do more, as much so as when they were living in a village, you know. And that piece of the pie is maybe a more smaller percentage, but relatively, because we have so much accessibility and connectivity. The fact that I'm able to talk to you right now is amazing, right? We're able to have this discussion fucking tens of thousands of kilometers apart, I think, and do it in real time on a stream to even more people vastly far apart.
Yeah,
and
while playing video games and, you know, having a philosophical and you know, civilized discussion.
Man,
like, what is this?
And that's my answer to, like, kind of how do we, especially with all this connection, how do we communicate that process across? And I've started with game playing, right? Because I believe game playing is kind of the basis of everything we do. We play games on many different levels, and they are more and more serious depending on the context. But we start off in life playing games. I'm going to take a break after this, by the way. I kind of want to surmise the thought and have a 10-minute thing. You guys can keep playing if you like. And the games that we play are really important because we play them repeatedly and often, and they become kind of our pattern of behavior, our being, to the level of, like, you know, the butterfly effect. You mentioned that before. I think the games we play and the way we think about them impacts our thinking in the future. And that's because the opportunities we see in any instance may be biased by the perspective or lens that we have over our eyes. We are not completely mindful all the time. We have to be mindful of that. We have to be mindful that, oh, I've been unconsciously acting like this. Okay, right, cool. We have to accept that level of, oh, I'm doing this without thinking. Okay, I need to think about that, and practice that often. And I'm doing that on the level of games, in that Rocket League isn't the only game you're playing when you're playing with people online. When you're playing with people online, you're communicating with them, you're adjusting to their play styles, you're trying to be a good sportsman as well, and sway in a positive way, such that people don't feel tilted, that they'll play better, that they'll work with you in the future to be better. And that isn't also just tied to the single game. And I'm playing this on the streamer level, where every time that I'm on stream, I'm trying to be as positive as I can, because I want that pattern to exist throughout my life. And I believe that it will. It has already. I have a little Cakey. I have a Cakey speaking in my head on autopilot whenever I'm doing anything in life. I dropped something on my toe, and I laughed at the fact that I reacted with happiness that the thing I dropped on my toe didn't break. Because I didn't give a fuck about my toe. And I saw the pain and went, okay. Whatever, the thing that I dropped on my toe didn't break. That's sweet. It didn't hit the tiles. Awesome, right? And it's that level of like, you can play the game of your own damn perspective, and you can play the game of your own response in the world. And if you play the game like you're playing role-playing games or RTSs or Rocket League, and you practice these elements in your game playing, they will become so fucking automatic and natural in your life. It's out of this world, unreal.
And reacting with happiness to suffering is something that I think needs to be taught on a higher level. When I was in Nashville, I was getting ready to have a car towed. I had just lost my job. There were like a number of things crashing down around me. And I'm getting my car towed, and this guy from our church, yes, I was going to church at the time.
No worries, no.
But this guy comes up and he sees my car getting towed, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm fantastic." And he's like, "But isn't your car getting towed?" I'm like, "Yeah, but at least I have a car to be being towed."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Holy shit, I need some of that perspective."
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And going back to the sellable thing, like the game that I'm trying to play is to make stream accessible, right? And talk about these really cool things, mechanisms that we have in life, and from my own level. Like, I don't want to be preaching to people, this is what you need to do, because I'm not playing that game. I've seen that play out on Twitch well too much, and I've seen those people fall. And I think the best people that teach are role models. And so what I'm trying to do is, instead of focusing on what other people are doing wrong, what other people need to do in their life, I go, okay, how did I react to that? How am I responding to this? And what games can I play internally and then externally to then help people in my wider community? Because the more I help people in my like, even my close circles to my wider community, the more they will help me also. Just like we were talking about the idea of you can look after yourself first and be a very successfully altruistic person. You can do that. You can help people by helping yourself first. And I think people forget that when they're too concerned about politics or the war in Iraq or like levels. And I mentioned all those things. They are things to be worried about. But the things that you're worried about, I need you to ask this question: is it effective? And that's what I ask myself. And I go, wow. Yeah, the worries about the war in Iraq, the fact that terrorism exists, the fact that people die every day, that terrible things can happen, my own mortality, etc., etc., etc. These are things that I don't need to worry about anymore because they are ineffective to worry about. And now I find my mind just going, yep, no, that's ineffective. No, that's ineffective. And now I'm thinking about really cool shit. Like, I had a dream the other night where I was traveling around in space and playing various games that I play on stream in this kind of ethereal space, and I'm like, and I conceptualized it as a VR space of, like, you know, imagine Steam, the platform, turning into a full VR experience where you can go, okay, I'm gonna play Rocket League, fucking hyperspace over the Rocket League planet, go down to a match, watch someone else play, and then jump into your own match over somewhere else on the planet, like Ready Player One kind of level. If you've read the book is way better than the movie, by the way. Don't watch the movie. Read the book. It's way better because there's this massive world. Anyway, man, Zyphon, it has been a massive pleasure to talk to you, and I've been excited to talk to you on this level because I noticed you playing really, really smart games in what you do, and the fact I didn't know you were writing a book. That's amazing. I would love to read that book, and talk to you again about it. And yeah, it would be amazing to read that book and then be able to come back at you with, like, oh, what about this, and see what we can get more out of our conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man.
For sure.
All right,
I
man.
love talking about stuff like this. I mean, in general, you know, it's gonna sound a little bit arrogant to make this statement, but being
Mm.
aware of this, like you said, you know, being aware of your internal things and asking yourself important questions is what triggers this in my brain all the time. Is the small minds discuss people, big minds discuss ideas.
Mm.
And so every time that I'm presented with a thing where somebody says, "Oh, I hate this person in the media," or "I hate that person on the
Mm.
news," or "I hate this person, um, you know, who's a celebrity," or "I hate, you know, whatever," and they talk about the person, I sit there and I go, "Okay, but what about the ideology
Mm-hmm.
behind what it is they're doing? What
Yeah.
about the people that they've been able to connect with, and how many lives have they saved because of somebody having someone to latch onto?"
Mm-hmm.
Now, I may not agree with that person's personal ideologies. I may not agree with the way they present themselves. I may even not agree with a lot of their either political or moral stances.
Mm.
But the fact remains, this human has been able to affect so many other people
Mm.
in a certain way.
Yeah.
Now, some of them it is negative,
Yeah.
and you have to sit there and, like, you know, ask yourself, okay, well, where's the line? And I don't know, you know what I mean? That goes back to the whole acceptance of, at the core, we're all barbaric, and we're all just
Mm.
you know, we have these disgusting creatures that live within us that we try and bury further and further with each thing.
Mm. Mm.
um so I don't know, it's just something I struggle with and really spend a lot of time thinking on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even though we're sitting there doing the streaming thing and playing video games, you know, again, I'm affecting locally. The
Mm.
people that come to our stream, we're inclusive. We love them for being exactly who they are,
Yeah.
for their differences, for all that stuff. We've had some great conversations that have popped up, and some people have tried to derail them and stuff like that. And we're like, hey, look, you know, this just isn't gonna fly.
Yeah.
Um, you're allowed to have your mentality. They're allowed to have theirs.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
anyway.
love it. I love it. I would love to keep talking, but I really should do a break before I fuck myself into a
Heck yeah.
migraine corner. So,
No, you're good.
yeah, let's do this again sometime. I loved having you on, and I would love to chat more
For
about your
sure,
book
brother.
and these ideas. And further that, I love the the big minds think about ideas thing, because I believe everyone can have a big mind. It's just about getting there, and
Absolutely.
that's why I have my gripe with the education system, and that's why I have my gripe with all that. It's like it's not leading people there, and all these other people. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll cut it there. Thanks, Zyphon. Please, anyone in chat, I've already shouted them out. Please, shouted them out. RocketGirl and Zyphon. How long have you been going? Give us the rundown, man. Um,
For like our
for your
the
stream,
husband
yeah.
and wife duo stream team for 21 years.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, yeah. You've got
Yeah,
that down, man. You got the tagline. It's awesome. Like, and it's a good
well,
one.
you
It's
kind of
not like,
have to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've been playing and trying to find what moves right. But
Well, you
anyway,
talk about playing a game. You know, I'll leave you with this parting thought. Look
yeah.
at, like, Jimmy Fallon or a lot of those other variety shows and stuff like that.
Okay.
They always lead in the same way. It's the intro music. It's the big announcer voice that comes in and says, "Tonight's guests, you know,
Yep.
Beyonce knows, blah blah blah, and here's your host, Jimmy Fallon," and
Yeah.
they always do the same format. Well, we've already been trained to look for that format, so that's what I've been trying to build with our channel,
I like it.
is creating that familiarity. So
Mm.
you talk about playing a game, that's the game I'm playing, is creating that familiarity with the entertainment aspect so that people can feel comfortable having a place to call
Mm.
home.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I'm kind of going for the you're on the couch playing with your mates kind of aesthetic, or you're
Yeah,
in a house and you've got like some brother and uncle playing a game on the computer, and you're like kind of just seeing in from that perspective, and yeah, tying to that positivity thing and just trying to build that up. Anyway, man, I love you. I'll leave you now and go on my break, and I'll be back soon, everyone else. And thank you once again, Zyphon. It's been a pleasure.